Have you struggled to find the best dating advice YouTube channels for the Philippines? Wouldn't it be nice if someone would just recommend to you what the best channels are, instead of having to constantly search and watch along the way to try to figure it out on yourself? I think there's a better way. Well, hi, I'm Eric, and welcome to my Island Expats channel. I cover the most popular expat channels and also focus on topics, news, and events for the community that wants to visit, retire, or live in the Philippines. I've traveled to the Philippines for the last 10 years for both business and for pleasure. On this channel, I discuss some of the most popular expat channels and the personalities behind them, which makes us different than just about everybody else. This way you have an idea of who to follow, where they focus, and some pretty interesting conversations along the way.
Thank you for your patience in waiting for this video. You can probably guess it's not the easiest video to make, and especially because I am the type to not really talk about things like this so publicly. I usually like to just keep to myself, not really share like sadder aspects or just more emotional aspects of my life. But of course, we've been sharing our lives for so long on the internet with you guys, and it's important to let you know so we can all like move past this and continue making vlogs and showing off our lives. And with this video afterwards, we can get on with our lives, get on with my life, and continue making content and enjoying life. So yeah, as many of you may or may not have noticed, Michael hasn't been in the vlogs lately, and he's actually started a new channel, which I'll make sure to link so you can go check it out. But we are in the process of getting a divorce. In Canada, where we were married, you have to be separated for a year before you can put in for a divorce. So we're doing that process right now. So we've been planning this for a while. We made it official in January, but it's kind of been like months of talking and like communicating, and it just we realized that we were growing separately, and so eventually we just had to, you know, do what's best for the both of us.
In today's video, I'll be covering expat dating advice channels for the Philippines. This category has some defined leadership that's been doing this for a while, as they've developed their own unique style of delivering this content over time. So their video output actually is quite high and is mostly topic driven. So you'll see at least weekly a video, and a lot of these guys more often than that. Well, be sure to stay tuned for the video of the week that will come after the expat dating advice channels, where I recommend a video that's well worth watching. I'll show you some of the highlights so you have an idea what's interesting and why to watch it. Okay, let's get back to this. The top channel in this category, based on the total number of subscribers, is Life Beyond the Sea, which is Rike. Rike's got 97,900 subscribers with 27 million views. Rike, who's also known as Henry, has been in the Philippines since 2012, and he came here from California. He has an interesting past, and he left a good career to have a different kind of life than the 8-to-5 routine locked in a day-to-day job, even though he was quite successful at it. He's definitely one of the original YouTube guys for the Philippines, no question. He provides a wealth of information about living abroad, covering topics from day-to-day life to deeper cultural insights, with a primary expertise in dating and relationships with Filipinas. Rike does not hesitate to state his opinions, but he also gives you the reasoning behind them based upon his own experience.
And he is married to a Filipina, and she's about 19 now. I believe they got married when she was 18. And that's kind of on the far extreme of the age gap difference. And it's not for everybody. And there's certain challenges I'm sure that they face with that age gap. And I've talked about before about just, in fact, I'll leave a link here to the whole age gap relationship article that I wrote. There's certain challenges and expectations if you're gonna do that. But that's not what I want to talk about today. What I want to talk about is something that I think isn't talked about enough. Um, a lot of guys, when they reach their retirement age, again, they come here after they've been divorced for quite a few years, they've been widowed, they've been out of the dating scene for quite some time, or they've just chosen to not participate in dating much in their home country, simply because they really don't care for the feminist Western influenced type of woman that they're encountering, and they're kind of limited to only dating women their age.
I would say he's a bit of a sage for the Philippines. Maybe we've coined a new term for you, Enrique, the sage of the Philippines. Actually, the title fits, as his style is to say, look, I've been there, so listen to what I've got to say and experience, and it'll save you some time and probably avoid some issues. Personally, I really enjoyed listening to him, and I have listened to him for quite some time, as he delivers some insight on the topics, and he usually refers to his own experience through storytelling. So you can say, well, this is what happened to me, and this is why I have this opinion. Now, one thing about Enrique is he really thinks through his videos before recording, and he finds a balance between educating and entertaining. He's very comfortable in front of the camera. He's a natural talker, making him just a natural vlogger. He has worked over the years to improve his content and his delivery, making him one of the top watched channels in this category, especially for middle-aged and older men. Enrique, you do a good job. I know you work hard on it. You're organized. You put a lot of thought into it. Your videos make sense, and I know I, for one, appreciate it. Number 2 in the expat dating advice category is Gio in the Philippines. Gio comes in with 55,700 subscribers with a total of 12 million views. Gio's been in the Philippines for the last, I think, 7 years or so, and he came from the U.S. When he first arrived in Southeast Asia, he taught English in both the Philippines and I think also in Vietnam, if I remember correctly. Gio focuses on his own experiences and his travels throughout the Philippines, and he gives tips for expats as they prepare to come over. So he's quite helpful as far as in preparation from coming to the Philippines and what to expect. He also covers relationships with Filipinas and what to look for in the right person offering dating advice. Gio, and along with Enrique too, also offers consultations and some paid content for those that want more information as part of their channels. Gio's style is to talk about his travels and experiences, and is usually talking on camera as his primary format. He turns it on in whatever location, and he just tells you what he thinks. But he's thinking through his topic. He's prepared. He's ready to go. But that's kind of what he does most of the time. Gio is not highly edited, but he does use graphics. He has a very nice intro and close, some great music, and it's interesting to watch. So he puts in the effort where he needs it. He's mostly having a conversation with you, and he covers a variety of topics. And I think just over the course of time, you can see by the content that he's made, it's always above board. And it's something that's interesting to watch. All right. Gio does sometimes do like an interview style, and occasionally he adds friends, especially at different locations like visiting a waterfall in the Dumaguete area. But his go-to format's very much to be solo on camera and just tell a story or have a conversation. It's always very relatable that way. His recent bride also has her own channel called Maya. You can find her by typing the @ symbol in the search bar for YouTube, Maya from the Philippines. She has 21,700 subscribers already, with 282 videos as of this writing. I don't know, but I would guess she didn't start the YouTube thing until she met Gio. Just a guess on that one. So I could be wrong. Anyway, Gio does a good job covering both the pros and cons for most topics. He's very fair to cover both sides. He doesn't act like he knows everything. He just gives you his perspective, which I appreciate. And he's earned his viewers' respect over time as he's willing to share his own experience and say what's worked and what's not.
All right, guys, the day has come. Today is my wedding day, so I just came to the hotel. Maya spent the night and her daughter in the hotel. We were a night apart. That we wanted to be kind of traditional that way. And so in today's video, I'm going to bring you along and show you the whole wedding. All right, so here's the room. They've already been decorating it. I'm here early because I got to change into my tux and wait for the wedding cake to come. But yeah, they did a really good job here. I'm very impressed and so inexpensive. Again, I spent probably around 100,000 pesos for this entire wedding. And so if anybody wants really details, if somebody's getting married in the Philippines and they want to send me a message about how much a photographer costs or how much this should cost, then I'm more than happy to answer that in the comments. Anyway, next time you see me, I'll be in a tux and Maya will be walking down that aisle.
Next up is the video of the week that I'd like to recommend, and it comes from Gio, as he actually discusses what the actual salary ranges are for workers and professionals in the Philippines, and what is considered the different classes, socioeconomic classes, based upon income in the Philippines. This is the first time that I've ever seen anyone do this with such detailed information. Super interesting and very much worth watching. Let's take a look at a couple sections of this video from Gio.
About the different income levels in the Philippines, where the different classes are and how much money they make. And are you considered rich or poor when you move out here and live in the Philippines? And also, what are your best options when it comes to dating? Where are the girls going to be found that are probably available for you to date? In what income levels and in what positions? We're going to take a look at all of that coming up now.
He's got a nice intro, doesn't he? Catchy little tune, good graphics. Gio's been around doing this, boy, at least 5 years. And 5 to 7, I think. Anyway, he's got some interesting things to say. Let's go to the first part here. So let me get you there.
Talk about what is considered poor and what is considered rich in the Philippines. And I'm going to throw that up on the screen for you. All right, so while we're looking at it on the screen here, let's start off with the poor. I will convert this over into dollars as of today's exchange rate, which is May 3rd, 2024. Now, these are from 2021, so I'm sure it's gone up some. But let's start off with poor. If they are making less than 12,030 pesos per month, you are considered poor in the Philippines. Low income, but not so poor, between 12,030 pesos to 24,060 pesos per month. Lower middle income, between 24,060 pesos to 48,120 per month. I actually know a few foreigners who live within that range. Middle class, between 48,120 to 84,210 per month. Upper middle class, between 84,210 pesos to 144,360 per month. Now, I happen to think that most foreigners fall within the middle class or upper middle income levels here in the Philippines, and that's what they live on. So most foreigners, when they come out here, are they considered rich? No, they would be considered middle class. All right, so most foreigners, when they come out here, they think, oh, I'm going to be considered rich. Well, maybe, but most of you probably are going to be considered middle class technically. So let's continue on and see what is considered rich.
Okay, it's interesting information so far, isn't it? There's a big difference in the income levels between the U.S. and the Philippines. For reference, right now, the exchange rate's about 57 to 1, 57 pesos to $1. To make the math easy, most of us, especially when we travel there, we just kind of use 50 to 1. So like 1,000 pesos divided by 50 is 20 bucks. That's just an easy way to do it. So every 1,000 pesos is 20 bucks. Let's see what he has to say.
Now, next we have the upper income but not rich between 144,360 pesos to 240,600 pesos. Now, again, I will put this in dollars as well. And to be considered rich, you need to have at least 240,600 pesos per month. That is what you need to be considered rich if you come out here in the Philippines. So the majority of expats, again, aren't really considered rich here, but they are considered middle class. So just a distinction level for you guys to know here. Another couple.
Okay, so let's just go back to what he's saying here. The top class, considered the upper class, is at about $4,200 per month. So roughly, what's that? 4,200 times 12, it's about 50K per year, right? Roughly. So that's interesting. That means doctors, lawyers, all types of professionals. He's actually going to get into this later in the video by job occupation. So the actual position, what the average is. It's surprising. Even like a top level surgeon, what they make there compared to here. But let him get into a couple more points here. I think he's going to talk about the average salary in just a second.
Statistics I wanted to show you. The average salary in the Philippines, and this is as of 2024, would be $350 US. Again, I'll put the conversion for the pesos. So the average salary in the Philippines, across the Philippines, $350 US. Now, some other interesting statistics here, and this again is 2024. Nearly 100% of everyone in the Philippines, nearly, earns less than 1,600 US dollars per month. 75% of employees earn $480 or less. 50% of employees earn $340 or less, and 25% of employees earn less than 260 US dollars per month. We're going to continue on with some statistics here now.
Okay, so let's hold for a second. I find this chart pretty interesting. Let me pull it back up. I think we should talk this through. I don't see, the one thing I think is missing here is where are they pulling this from? So I'm sure Gio knows this, but when you quote statistics, you're supposed to give the source. That would be helpful to us because then we could look it up for ourselves here. One thing I just wanted to kind of manage backwards here. This feels a little low to me. Again, not questioning Gio's research. I'm sure he's looked at this in detail. I'm only going by that in my business, I hire virtual assistants that help me with computer work. So I have 3 guys throughout the Philippines, one in Davao, one in Bacolod City, and one in the Dumaguete, Valencia area. And they're all college graduates, college degrees, savvy in the computer, 30 or younger. So kind of on their way up. And I know what I pay them per hour. And I would be somewhere between the 75% level to, yeah, I'm not going up to 1,600. That's high, obviously. But I am, I would say I am closer to maybe 85% of that. So, you pay by experience. In my case, I'm looking for particularly, well, it depends on the job, but either a computer science major that really understands data analytics, or have a graphic designer that's on one who's just super creative, and then very musical, so it's very helpful. And then another guy actually worked for Amazon seller support at one point. So that's kind of my business. I don't talk about it here, but I have like products and brands that I develop and I sell on to mostly Amazon, but eBay, Walmart, that type of thing. So, been a business guy my whole career. Anyway, I've had Filipino employees for 10 years. And that's often what I do is I go over and visit them, hang out with them, work together. It's fun for me. So I'm just telling you, I don't feel like I'm on the high range. I know I have some friends that pay more than that with the idea that they'll get the very best people in the market by overpaying. I would say the average salary per month that's paid for a virtual online person with a college degree or who's got a lot of experience, could be either, colleges and everything. I got to say, it's probably between $600 and $1,000 per month. I would say that's the average. So I think part of the math problem here is the 75% saying 480 and the 100% saying 1,600. Well, it's almost 3 times greater moving from 75% to 100% from about $400 to 1,600, right? 4 times greater. Yeah. So anyway, just for reference, don't know if it matters. The only point I would make out here is there are some foreigners that go over to the Philippines. And if they have the means, you can hire a housekeeper, a cook, someone to do the shopping, someone to run the errands for you. And, you can probably pay them, honestly, a decent wage is like between $2.50 and $3 per hour US. And they're happy with it. And you're providing jobs for them. So it's not like you're doing something wrong here. I think he'll probably talk about the average wages somewhere further into the video, but I think it's on a national basis, it's under $3 per hour. Okay, let's see what else he has to say.
We're going to continue on with some statistics here. Now, the high-paying jobs, what are considered the highest-paying jobs in the Philippines? Well, number one, and this would be really like it would be in any other country, a surgeon is number one, doctor number two, chief executive officer, CEO, registered nurse, anesthesiast, dentist, airline pilot, intellectual property lawyer, marketing manager, marketing director, sales manager, sales director, and petroleum engineer. So let's take a little further look at that. A surgeon would make around $1,600 US per month. And then it goes all the way down to a lawyer, which would be about $860 per month. Now, again, people are going to comment and say, you know what, I know an attorney here in Dumaguete or in Cebu who is just constantly has clients. And again, this is the average. This is not every single lawyer out there. This is looking at the average.
Out of all the Expat channels, I think there's a couple. I'm just going to go off on a tangent for a second, and we'll get into this in future episodes. There's a couple that are very authentic to me, and they're just speaking their mind honestly with no agenda. Rike's another one. I think both of them are just going by their experience, what they've had there. There's another guy that we'll get into in a future episode, even though he's not really ranked that high in total subscribers. I find him very interesting to watch, is the Philippine Info channel. And he very much talks about what it's like as far as life there for an expat, things to do, not to do. Another guy, super authentic. There are several. There are others that are a little more pizzazz and highly edited videos. There's nothing wrong with that. I try to raise my production value, right? I spent several years learning how to produce videos. I've taken courses in cinematography. I edit my own videos. Editing takes forever. It took me a year how to learn the professional editing program. It was a headache and a half. So I can see why a lot of people don't do that. But for me, a lot of the creativity and the moments that I'm trying to capture happens when I'm editing and I see it. And then all of a sudden I can put it together, and it's hard for me to tell that to somebody else. But I think the important thing is that there's no wrong answer here. There are some expat YouTube channels that have a very high production value. They are good at editing. They're good at thinking things through. Rike in particular, I feel like he really thinks through his videos before he shoots them. Or he's just really natural on camera because he just kind of unfolds a flow that you can follow. I think he's one of the better ones that way. Another channel I find interesting to watch, just because the stories are all different, is Mark Thornton's channel, Every Man Has a Story. And he just basically interviews guys. Why did you come over here? And what are you looking for? And how did it work out? So sometimes I have that playing in the background, just kind of interesting to listen to while I'm working. So a lot of the expat people are authentic. The ones for me personally that I don't care as much about, and they're not doing anything wrong, is just when they turn on the camera and they just start talking and they don't have a plan, they don't have agenda, they don't have an outline, they haven't thought it through, and all I kind of hear is blah, blah, blah. Those are the ones that I just don't enjoy. Maybe somebody else likes it because it's a little more raw. I'm just saying personally, I'd rather listen to somebody's video that's done some homework like Gio. He's presenting me numbers that I haven't seen before, and I'm gauging against my own 3 employees over in the Philippines and what I pay them. I also have to think about where they're located. I think if you're in Manila or in Cebu City area, you're probably paying more for the employees. That's where those customer service centers are. I think they call them BPOs. So, but that's what the call centers are. And so there's more competition and all of that. When you get outside of those 2 primary cities and you're more what they would call province, then you probably can pay a little bit less. Cost of living's less for them. So that's probably a quid pro quo right there. Anyway, just throwing out my thoughts here. It's kind of fun to put this channel together. I mean, that's my purpose here on this Island Expats. It's to build up these expat community and to give you a lot of information in one place. I've done a ton of research for each of these videos so that I'm credible and I know what I'm talking about. I may not be perfect. I may misstate something. The other thing that's going to happen is I'm going to tell you, oh, this channel's got 100,000 subscribers. Well, that number is constantly moving, right? And if you're a really popular channel, it's moving pretty quickly. Back to Gio.
Let's take a look at the lowest paying jobs, and this is where it's going to relate to dating. Okay. So cashier workers, child care workers, stock clerk, elder care worker, receptionist, bartender, food and beverage server, janitor, waiter, tour guide, customer service representative, and hotel concierge. These are the ones that make the least amount of money. And honestly, when I meet most foreigners and they introduce their girlfriend or their wife, well, most of them, or they've met them in a on the boots ground type of a thing. I wanted to go over those statistics with you, and I wanted to talk a little bit more how this comes into play when it comes to dating, because again, the majority of us who end up dating, marrying a Filipina, you are not going to be marrying Filipinas really probably even in the middle class up to the considered rich. They just aren't really interested in these large age gap relationships. Now, if it's a young professional guy from the US or Australia or wherever, and he starts maybe speaking to an attorney or something like that, and they both are professionals and within the same age range, then sure, why not? But maybe a guy who's 65 and a girl who's 28 years old who's an attorney, probably she is not really interested like maybe a cashier worker. And so money absolutely comes into play. You can be as disillusioned as you want. Money certainly comes into play when you have these large age gap relationships.
Okay, this pay scale comparison I find really interesting. I think the 100% should probably be adjusted, as there are some wealthy people in the Philippines. Usually families that own businesses, that's kind of what you see in the kind of wealthier upper class. And personally, I've seen some $1 million homes in Cagayan de Oro, in Cebu, and in some of the Manila areas. So there are some people making quite a bit more than this in order to afford those $1 million homes. I would tell you that when I was in Cagayan de Oro a few years ago, and I was kind of looking around the place a bit to see how much houses were, condos and things like that, I came across this area that had a country club with the tennis courts and the golf course and all of that stuff. There were some huge homes in that area, and it was a beautiful, beautiful neighborhood. It equaled anything we have in the U.S. And when I looked at the price of the homes, they were in the millions. I also saw an area like that in Cebu, and also somewhere outside Makati area, Manila. There's a really fancy neighborhood. I forget the name of it, but they're mansions by any standard. So there are people that can afford these things that are above that upper class pay level. But again, Gio's reporting out based upon some government data, and he's giving us what he has found to be, the averages of the information that's being presented. I'm sure it's accurate. I'm just saying my own experience has been there are some wealthy families. And I have met some Filipinos along the way that either came from families that have businesses and owned land and crypto and had bank accounts. So not everybody is poor, although the vast majority of the country is poor by far. So it's interesting to me how this relates to dating in the Philippines. Gio makes some really interesting points here, especially about the wealthier Filipinos, who are not really interested in foreigners with large age gaps. And why would they be? They don't need to be. They don't need your money. So it makes sense. They'd probably find someone closer to a contemporary in the same age group. As a side note, the current exchange rate's about 57 pesos to the dollar, just from a reference standpoint. I think recently the peak's been about 58 at the top. The exchange rate, probably 4 or 5 years ago, probably at that time, 45 pesos to the dollar. So it's super favorable right now. Now, here's the interesting thing on the history of this. If we go back to about, I think it was 1898, where the U.S. took over the Philippines from the Spanish. They call it something like the American colonial period. And by 1903, they put in their own monetary system in order to measure the peso to the U.S. dollar, to reference the two directly. When they did that in 1903, they used 2 pesos for $1. So there's the history. It started at an exchange rate of 2 to 1. Now, that held for a while until after World War II. And then after World War II, it started to change. And by the mid-1960s, they started floating the peso versus the U.S. dollar. And when they did that, and this is common in less developed countries, because the U.S. is such an economic powerhouse and the world's largest economy, that if these less developed countries don't keep up, this exchange rate difference tends to get bigger. And that's exactly what happens in the Philippines. Again, that's a generalization. There's always exceptions, but that's kind of how it went for the Philippines. So there was a point, it was over 100 years ago now, but it was an exchange rate of 2 to 1. So that's one reason to really visit over into the Philippines, is to, be able to have your dollar stretch so far. So whether it's vacation or a second home or just moving there in general, your dollar goes a long, long way. Okay, that's going to do it for this episode. But make sure you stay tuned for the next, because the next video, we're going to cover the most popular overall expat channels that basically give advice to expats. Now, there's a lot of channels in that category. So we're actually going to get into the top 10 channels based upon total number of subscribers. And along the way here, I'm going to mention some other channels that may not be in the top 10, but there's some interesting information from them. Either they have a different point of view, they cover a different area. For example, I came across one that doesn't have a lot of views or subscribers yet, but he kind of does real estate like in the Dumaguete area. And he takes you through how much your condo is going to cost, whether you want to rent it, you want to buy it, how much the houses are. So we're going to continue in our series about all these different expat channels. And basically, in the end, I'm trying to cover all of the different general topic areas. So it'll be interesting for you to find out who's the most popular, who's up and coming, and why people watch them. All right, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you come back for the next one as we continue on that Expat Life channel. All right, take care, and thanks for watching.